The night was quiet in a way that felt heavy, like the world was holding its breath. I had just come home from a 40-hour shift, my body aching, my mind numb. I reheated yesterday's leftover rice and curry, sat at the tiny dining table in my small apartment, and tried to pretend life wasn't pressing down on me. That's when my phone buzzed. I didn't expect a message from him. My father rarely texted me unless it was to remind me of something I owed, or something I failed to do. Still, I wiped my hands on a napkin and checked the screen. A single line, sharp, cold, final, I disown you, talk to my lawyer. For a full moment, I stared at the message without moving. Not because I was shocked. I learned years ago that my father was capable of cruelty without hesitation. But something inside me paused, like a quiet recognition that this was the moment everything changed. Disown me as if he had ever really owned me. My thumb hovered for a second before I typed the simplest reply. Okay, just that. One word, the same one he always used to end conversations he didn't want to continue. This time, it was mine. I set the phone down and took another bite of food, though the taste had faded. The world around me felt strangely still, as if waiting for my reaction. But instead of breaking, instead of collapsing into the familiar ache he spent years beating into me, I just breathed. This wasn't new pain. It was old pain wearing new clothes. The message dragged me back into memories, him praising my older brother, Samir, for every small achievement, while my own accomplishments were dismissed as expected. The birthdays he forgot. The nights I slept on the warehouse floor, after he locked me out for questioning him. The way he refused to attend my graduation, because Samir had a more important event. Dad had always been a man who valued control more than love, and I had spent most of my life learning how to live without his approval. But my mother, she had been different. Before she died, she looked at me with eyes full of worry and gentleness and said, "One day, Ian, you'll need protection from your father." I didn't understand what she meant back then. Tonight, I finally did. I cleaned my plate, put it in the sink, and sat on the edge of my bed. My father had cut the last thread between us, but he didn't know one thing. The business he thought he controlled, the assets he thought belonged entirely to him. Mom had already given me the key, and tomorrow I would finally use it. Morning arrived without ceremony. No sunlight through the curtains, just the dull gray of a sky that looked tired, as if it knew what was coming. I dressed quietly, my hands steady, my heartbeat strangely calm. There was no anger boiling beneath my ribs, no panic clawing at my chest. Only clarity. For the first time in years, I felt like I was walking toward something instead of running from it. The bank sat on the corner of Maple Road, a place I had visited only a handful of times. The floors were polished, the air cold, and the silence inside felt almost sacred. I stepped forward, and the manager, Mr. Idris, looked up from his desk. His face softened with recognition. "Ian Beta," he greeted gently. "It's been a long time." I nodded. "I need to access the business account, the one under my name." His expression changed. Not shocked, but aware. My mother had trusted this man with documents she never trusted with her husband. "Of course," he said, standing. "Everything is in order. I'll bring the files." When he returned, he placed the papers in front of me. My name, Ian Rahim, written in clear, permanent ink, majority owner, 51%, access, unrestricted. I traced the signature that belonged to my mother. A small flood of emotion threatened my composure, but I swallowed it. This was not the time. "Would you like a partial withdrawal, Mr. Idris asked, or full? I looked up, meeting his steady gaze, and in the calmest voice I had ever used, I said, "Full." Minutes later, the transaction was complete. The number on the receipt was astounding years of revenue, savings, emergency funds, money Dad believed he alone commanded. But this wasn't for revenge. This was for justice. My next stop was the office. The employees greeted me with polite confusion. Many hadn't seen me since Mom's funeral. Some had always been kind, offering small smiles or food when Dad forced me to stay late in the warehouse. Those people received full salaries on the spot. 2 who were struggling financially got immediate bonuses. The elderly guard who once brought me tea when I was locked out got his entire debt cleared. Their stunned gratitude felt heavier than any anger I could have carried. By lunchtime, The first alarm bells rang. Dad's phone must have lit up with notifications, declined payments, abnormal withdrawals, halted operations. My own phone buzzed relentlessly. 17 missed calls, 10 more messages, all from him. I didn't open any. He had disowned me. He had told me to talk to his lawyer, so now he didn't get to talk to me. I stepped out of the office, the wind brushing against my face, carrying a strange sense of freedom. Today wasn't destruction. It was correction. The storm hadn't started yet, but its clouds were forming behind me, quiet and unstoppable. The storm arrived faster than I expected. By the next morning, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Messages from managers, former accountants, and even distant relatives who had never cared about me before. I ignored them all. I knew the real confrontation was inevitable, and it came in the form of a formal court notice delivered to my apartment door. My father had filed an emergency petition, claiming I had stolen from the business. If only he knew how ironic that sounded. The courtroom was cold, echoing with footsteps and whispers. Dad stood on the opposite side, his jaw tight, his eyes burning with the fury of a man whose power was slipping through his fingers. Samir hovered behind him, visibly shaken, though trying to mask it with arrogance. The judge entered. Everyone sat. Dad's lawyer, a man who used to pat my head when I was a child, cleared his throat and began dramatically. Your Honor, this young man has taken unauthorized funds. He didn't get to finish. My lawyer, someone Mom had hired years ago, and kept quietly on retainer, rose calmly. With respect, Your Honor, the petitioner seems to have forgotten key documents. My client is the majority owner of the business. The withdrawals he made were fully within his rights. The judge frowned. Majority owner. My lawyer handed over a set of neatly bound files, Mom's signatures, notarized dates, ownership transfers, all sealed legally and irrevocably. The silence that followed was almost painful. Dad's face turned pale. Samir's eyes widened as if he were witnessing his world collapse in real time. The judge scanned the documents thoroughly, then looked straight at my father. According to this, your late wife placed full operational control with your son. The court sees no wrongdoing here. Dad staggered back slightly, gripping the table for balance. For the first time in my life, I saw fear in his eyes. Not fear of losing money, but fear of losing control. Samir muttered, voice trembling, Dad, you said Mom left nothing to him. But she had left everything that mattered. Outside the courtroom, reporters and businessmen whispered. Word spread quickly. How the great Rahim patriarch had been outsmarted by his own wife and undone by his own neglect. Over the next week, the consequences hit like falling bricks. Creditors refused extensions, investors pulled out. Illegal deals surfaced without my protection. Properties tied to shady ventures fell apart. Employees who once feared Dad now looked to me for stability. I protected them where I could, paid overdue wages, sold off failing assets, and shut down every corrupt branch of the company. I didn't ruin him. I simply stopped shielding him. He was sinking in a sea he had created, and as each day passed, it became clear. Dad wasn't just losing money. He was losing his entire empire, one that had never been built with love, only control. And control, once gone, leaves nothing behind. The collapse of my father's empire didn't happen with fire or explosions. It unraveled quietly, like a thread pulled from an old sweater, slowly revealing the emptiness underneath. For days, I avoided every message, every call, every shameless attempt by my father and brother to guilt-trip me. Their voices shifted from rage to panic to desperation, but the silence I gave them was not revenge. It was closure. One evening, as I finalized the sale of another corrupt property, my phone rang again. This time, it was the elderly guard from the office, Uncle Rahim, the same man who once brought me hot tea when I slept in the warehouse as a teenager. Ayan Baidat, his voice cracked. Your father is here at the office. He's alone. He looks broken. I think you should come. I closed my eyes and inhaled slowly. I didn't owe my father anything, not love, not loyalty, not forgiveness, but I owed something to myself. To the boy who once wanted answers, to the young man who once begged for love. So I went. The office was dimly lit, a single bulb flickering weakly. My father sat at the head of the long meeting table, the same seat he used to claim with pride. But now he looked small, hunched, his face lifeless, like a king who finally realized the throne was made of dust. He looked up when I entered. There was no anger in his eyes anymore, only emptiness. "Ian," he whispered, my name trembling on his tongue, "you ruined me." I stepped forward, my expression calm. "No," I said softly. "I stopped saving you from the consequences of your own choices." His jaw tightened as if he wanted to shout, but the defeat in his shoulders kept him silent. The silence between us was heavy decades of pain, neglect, favoritism, and unsaid words floating in the air. "Why did you do this?" he finally asked, a question he should have asked himself years ago. "I didn't destroy your empire," I said. "It was built on fear, lies, and greed. It collapsed because that's all it ever was.